Just so you know as well, please sign up. I dropped the link in the chat for the sign in and earn 10 Talents Up points for your organization today. And if you would like to learn more about the Talents Up program, we do have some information on our site as well as our Instagram page for student activities as well. But I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So I just want to go ahead and welcome you all to our session today for treasurer training on dollars and cents. I'm super excited to talk about the money, like the most important part sometimes, and making sure that y'all can fulfill the missions and the goals of your organization, as well as we'll get into some fundraising tips and some funding opportunities as well. I will be monitoring the chat box throughout the entire presentation, so feel free to drop in the chat if you have any questions throughout any point of the presentation. So the first things I just wanted to run through was the roles of the treasurer. So even if you're not a treasurer today, or you're an officer or president or a vice president or an advisor, and you're here today, this is just kind of the roles of the treasurer that I would say to set for yourself and also to take back. So of course, the role of the treasurer is to prepare the budget and regularly report financial records for your organization. A lot of times if your organization collects dues, they collect the dues, they have receipts. They have a receipt book as well to give that to the organization, and they have an approval process for all purchases being made by officers, members, advisors. So no purchases should be made on behalf of the organization without the treasurer being aware of that purchase. And that's just to keep everything sound and everything in your records correct, which we'll talk about in this training today. And they'll pay off any financial obligations promptly and on time. So let's say your book some borrowing on campus, your treasurer, you would the one that facilitates and making sure that y'all pay those payments. If you have a catering order from a business, if y'all are buying some t-shirts, they pay off those financial obligations. And they monitor and keep good financial records, including in detail your organization's banking procedures. So if you do have a bank account or some other method of keeping up with your money, your treasurer is the one who oversees that. So these are some of my suggested items and skills of when you are voting for a treasurer in your organization, or even if y'all self-appoint, or if you're interested in being a treasurer. These are some of the items you should be asking for your organization, as well as some skills that you should have on your own. So one of them is having a receipt book. A receipt book is very important to have, because that is where, if you're doing like membership dues, you can write that and give officers receipts, as well as, let's say you had a member buy some snacks on behalf of the organization, but they use their personal fund. And so when you reimburse them, you can put that in the receipt book. A fire safe, secure money bag. If y'all ever seen like those green bags that people have at events and they're collecting money, that, I know it's probably like, oh, cute, the money bag, but really also those green bags have fire safe so that your cash, if you're having cash handling going on, your money can't get burned if a fire was to happen. Having a treasurer email separate from your own email account to keep all of your treasurer obligations in that one space. And a receipt template email. So like when you're sending a receipt to your members of the organization, having some template language for those situations as well. And budget spreadsheets. I'm going to show you some example budget spreadsheets and some resources on our website that can help you as well with keeping up with your budgets in case you need some help in that area as well. And then just some skills that I feel are ideal in candidates that are wanting to be treasurers. You have to be super organized. You need to be very detailed oriented. Being able to know how to work Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, whichever one you might prefer. Good communication skills with all of your officers and your members, as well as financial understanding of how money works and calculations, and being pretty good at math as well is a good trait to have as a treasurer. Are there any questions right here so far? I will be. Well, that gets us on to our next point, is about budgeting. So, of course, what is budgeting? What is the budget? So, it's a little different for your organization, but it's very much alike with how you personally budget for yourself as well. But budgeting is basically to put the organization's plans into monetary terms. So, if you're having a back to school event, if you're going to be having a fundraiser or anything of that nature, you're able to, okay, look at the event plan, but also pull at those financial aspects as well, monetary terms for each event program or et cetera that your org might be doing. Budgeting also is to provide a means of allocating limited resources among the student organization activities. I know many of our organizations are working with big ideas with sometimes limited funds. So budgeting kind of keeps you on track so that you can distribute your money accurately throughout your academic year. And to aid in tracking the student organization's actual semester/annual revenue and expenditures against its goal. So I'm going to pause right here and show y'all an actual budget sheet and that we have on our UNT website. So if you're going to our main website, on the UNT website, if you go down to student organization, just so y'all know the navigation of this next tool, and if you go to operations and then scroll down to money matters, treasury resources. This is where we have a budget example that can be downloaded. Right, so this is a budget Excel, like a template that we have that I am going to speak about in some other parts, but just if this is a resource that we do have on the website for you all, if you're wanting to get an example of a budget sheet. So it goes over projected balance, actual balance, difference, actual cost, and things of that nature, and some planning, tracking, and reviewing, which we'll talk about in some other sessions. But I just wanted to show y'all an actual example of a budget. So I recommend if you're doing budgets, I do it per semester and then putting it together for your full year or however your term might be long, but breaking it out into semesters. So of course, if you have your target budget, you have that up there in the years, and then just being very detailed. So you see on this example, we have like printing fees, snacks, room rentals, decorations, national dues. So in here, of course, with your projected cost and your actual cost. So projected cost is kind of like your estimate. So, okay, we think that we're going to spend $30 on our printing fees. Well, once we got our receipts back and we actually totaled up how much we actually spent, we actually only spent $20. So that's what projected cost is, what you're assuming that you're going to budget for. So we're going to budget for $30, but in actuality, we only spent $20. So then the difference is the subtracting the projected from the actual cost, and that's the difference you get of $10. So those are just some examples when you're looking at your budget. So like for this spreadsheet, their projected cost was $176, but their total actual cost was $139. So they had $37 total difference. And in my eyes, I'm like, okay, you saved $37. So that's just kind of another example. And this has set up for you well, and you even can go in here and put some formulas too. This is an example of a committee budget. So if you're in an organization that has multiple committees, you can have committee budget sheets as well that you can, copy and paste and send out to the leaders of those committees. And you can have, of course, what the committee is and having that student's name as well. And you can you can either send this out. Some organizations like to do that, or you can keep up for it yourself in this shared space as well. And then it's just another budget tracking. So how much we should spend on recruitment, flyers and cabling supplies and meetings and the amount of tickets. So this is just another budget tracking form that's very similar to this one as well. And then this is a template for a dues tracker. So if you need an example on how to keep up with dues, we have a tracker for that as well. But like I just did, this is downloadable from our Student Activities website, and you're welcome to go and visit this a little bit more and play around with it and choose what pulls out what works for your organization. So with preparing a budget, it's very important that you do 4 things, and that's review, understand, plan, and maintain. So review. So make sure that when you're preparing a budget, that you're transitioning materials and meet with like the former treasurer from last year to make sure that you have the actual amount that is within your budget for your organization, and so that you're not starting off with the wrong amounts and can, have inaccurate numbers throughout your term. And also understand, like, Where does the money come from? How does the org function when you are entering into this treasurer position? Ask those questions. And if you don't have like contact with the previous treasurer, it's very good to reach out to the current advisor, especially if your advisor was the advisor during the previous officer's time, as well as reaching out to your president to get that information to make sure that you understand how the functionalities are working. And then establish a plan with the exec team for when our dues going to be collected, when are going to be our deadlines, how much are we going to charge for dues this year? If you have a national, how much is national, and how much are we going to do about individual chapter? A big budget. Okay, we're trying to do 3 events this semester. What are going to be our budgets per event? So making sure you're having those conversations ahead of time so that y'all can all agree on a budget moving forward. And then, of course, keep records of everything, every receipt, every invoice, every PayPal invoice, Cash App, every bank transaction, anything that's you're doing on your debit cards. Make sure you're maintaining a record of and all types, you can check on all types of movement of money related to your student organization. So next, I'm going to go over a treasurer's report. It's very important as a treasurer that if y'all are meeting once a month or bi-monthly or however, even if it's bi-weekly, however you're required to have those treasurer's reports, to make sure that you do have a formal treasurer's report. So here's an example on the screen of one that you could adapt or use, and just kind of showing you how most people format theirs. So you see at the top, some of the key things that you need to have is one, the name of the organization, the title of the report, the date that this report was submitted, and the time frame that it's showing. So for the month ending August 31st, 2006, as we see on here. So that means this is for August 1st to August 31st. And just gives a time frame. So if anyone is looking back, that they know where it started and where it ended. So as you can see on the left side, we have beginning balance. So the beginning balance date that was in the account is from July 30th, 2006. So the beginning balance refers to how much is in your account before you had any income or any disbursements or expenses in your organization. So that's what the beginning balance is. And sometimes also that could be your rollover. So like they had an example, $2,500, and that's the rollover amount. It's another term that you might hear when you're doing treasury reports as well. And pending expenses. So pending expenses are expenses that you're waiting to, like, so you'll see like a pending transaction on your account. That means they haven't exactly been taken out yet. So that's what pending expenses are. Projected income is like if you are projecting to have dues. So if you're listing your dues somewhere, that could be projected income. So in total, if y'all are expecting to get $300 in dues, you can list that as projected income. And then projected fundraising. So if your fundraising goal is to raise $800 for your organization, that would be projected fundraising. And it kind of goes along with goals. So if you have goals to, okay, last year we spent 85% of our budget. Our goal this year is trying to spend only 60% of our budget. Those are some goals that you can also have when it comes to treasuring and talking with your exec boards and setting up your goals for your entire academic year. And even if you do events for this summer. So I would say a lot of times during your time. And a lot down here where it has like income, expenses, and ending balance. And you can kind of, like I say, that these are the dates and things that need to be exact. So from here, when it says deposit, this is the total amount of money that was brought into the account. Expenses, again, are if checks were written, or in this case, debit card was used on the account, or invoices were paid. This is how much money was spent. So you're going to do 25 minus the 2,500 minus $1,681.50. And then plus, excuse me, y'all, it's afternoon. So when you're calculating down here for your ending cash balance, it's going to be the sum of the incoming deposit and then subtracting the total expenses from your beginning balance. And that's how they end up down here. with a total of $3,309.50. And then also a good thing to do is to, if you have any checks outstanding, like they haven't cleared the bank yet, to list those down here as well, so that you know the amount of total outstanding checks that you're looking for to be coming out of your account. So if you wrote a check for $380 and another one for $250, but they haven't deposited into your account, make sure you're noting that so that officers, when they're looking at it, they're like, okay, so we are expecting to have $630 coming out as well, looking for it. And basically, what the content and, like I was calling, the meat of everything, income and expenses, it tells you where's money coming from and going, when, and how much. And that's what all of these columns and all of that information depicts. So some other options, if you're not using a bank account, some orgs have chosen to use PayPal, Venmo, even Cash App. And just some things to consider when you are going down the method is who can access the account. Like, will it only be one person with access, or will we have more than the treasurer with access? Will the president have access? Will the entire exec board, will the advisor have access? What protocols will the org follow? So even if you are going to choose to use PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, making sure that you have your own protocols in place and that you're, to your best ability, make sure that all people with access are following that protocol. And then how can the account be transitioned? I know some orgs in the past have had problems with trying to get a Cash App account for the org properly transitioned, but it was, even with PayPal and Venmo, but it was attached to a previous officer's number. And in some cases, some orgs have even lost access and lost funds because of those transition periods and those measures in place. And funds be transferred to a bank account. So that is something to look to when you're using options outside of a bank account, is that can other people transfer that fund from your PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App to another bank? And also, is there a debit card associated? I know all three of these options offer debit cards associated with their platform, and then making sure that is the option, is the org going to get one, or is the org going to opt out of that? And then again, can most people have access, or is it going to allow single access? Is another key thing to look for as well. And now I'm just going to go over some pros and cons of a debit card, as we were just talking about. Some pros, of course, what's good about it is it is more convenient to use. You were just able to swipe it and get the payments done. It processes very quickly as well. And what trends right now is you can make online payments. So those are some of the cons that a lot of people enjoy when it comes to a debit card. Pros. So when it comes for cons, it's very easy to overdraft with debit cards. Also, with bank accounts that have debit cards, sometimes you have multiple cards, multiple pins out there, and sometimes multiple cards can come with multiple problems, as well as potential for the misuse. The misuse of funds or misuse of the card is pretty much unlimited. This next part, I'm just going to go over some of our bank account information. So, and policies of how student activities helps in the process as well. So, if you are a part of an organization that has been here a while, that has a bank account, most likely your organization has filled out the checking account verification request form on OrgSync in the past. So, that's a form that we use when you're opening a bank account and updating a bank account. And the end result is we make you a bank account, checking account verification letter that you can take to your banking institution. So if you're opening a new bank account, you'll fill out the checking account verification request form on OrgSync. Student Activities will then send a PDF letter to the email address of the person who filled out the form. Most times it's like the primary contact, or it might be the treasurer. In between there, before we even fill out the form, it does require approval. Approval email will be sent to your advisor as well as your president about the opening of the bank account. We highly recommend adding the student org president, the treasurer, and the advisor on the account. The reason why we recommend your advisor is because in most situations, the advisor stays in the org longer than our officers. So most times the goal is our officers graduate and leave the institution, or even sometimes they might transition to other organizations or things of that nature, and just kind of secures that the org will have funds and access to their funds, and release the advisors on the account who might stick around a little bit longer. And you also have to obtain a tax ID number, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then if you're requesting a SS4 form from the IRS, you have to go to the IRS government website to get the EIN, which is the tax ID number, and some other forms that have to be filled out as well. So on the flip side of that, if your organization already has a bank account, and let's say you're the new treasurer for that account, then you again will fill out the checking account verification request form with your request. We'll look at the updates, and we will again email your advisor and your president of your organization for your approval. And Student Activities will send you a PDF letter to your email address as well that you can take to your banking institution. And only the current signatories can submit the form. So if you are a new treasurer, then you will have to make sure that you've already had permission to be on the form, if that makes sense. So if you're the new treasurer, just make sure that you're already listed on the OrgSync profile as the treasurer before you submit that request form. And then only current signatories, back to that part. So only current signatories can submit a form. So when you go to the bank, you will need someone with you that is on the account to make changes to the account. So that's a difference with going to update a bank account. That a lot of banking institutions sometimes they will allow virtual, but the current people that are on the bank account also need to go when you're switching over and transitioning bank account. And again, make sure you submitted a 24-25 re-registered registration form. So if you're registered, you have to be registered for the current academic year to open a bank account and to update a bank account. And also that's because when we're looking at the form to make the letter, if Jane is listed as the president on the checking account request form, but the president is still saying that it is John, we won't be able to complete that letter until the roster is accurate. And even if you're transitioning after you register, so like in the spring, you have to go in and update your OrgSync roster before we can make those edits. And then again, all being added or taken off have to be present when you're going and updating your bank account. And then I just have some keys to financial success that I wanted to share with everyone. So make sure you're using internal controls and you're requiring the signature of at least 2 officers. So from my experience and when I was an undergrad student, and what we used to do is even when we were signing our checks, where, you know, it's that one line on the check and it's only one person's signature, we required that the advisor and as well as the treasurer also had to sign the check. So we had like about 3 people's name on the checks. And it wasn't required by the banking institution, but it was just our record of showing like, okay, before we take this out of the checkbook, all 3 of these people, the president, the advisor, and the treasurer are aware of this transaction that's about to take place. And you don't have to do it that way. You could have an email communication or another method that works for your organization. Make sure you're maintaining current files of your organization's financials. So that goes back to make sure you're having like a receipt booklet or some type of virtual document as well, or Excel with all the information for your org. And making sure that financial records should be up to date. So making sure that you're updating those in real time in case you get asked a question about the financials because you are the treasurer. And also consider creating a prior approval purchasing form for your organization. So this is just like if you have multiple people who are needing multiple purchases, that you have like a Google form or a Microsoft form that they can fill out so that it keeps it all in one place for you. And make sure cash and checks are deposited within 24 hours of receiving them. So as soon as you receive that money, make sure that it's deposited into your bank account so that you're not having to walk around with money on you. And using a shopping list. So if y'all are ever for events, if people are wanting to make purchases, encouraging your committee chairs to make shopping lists, or even for you, make shopping lists so that one, you can see the prices of everything and make sure everything's on budget, and that it keeps you a record too of what was supposed to be bought versus what was actual bought, in case you are running into issues where committee members might have got a little happy in their purchases. And then avoid impulse purchases. So sometimes, it might be something really cool, and an officer might say, we need this right now. Make sure you take the time to review your financial records before you just make an impulse decision and say, yes, we have it in the budget, when that might not be the case. Like, allow people to give you time to look at the reports. Because at the end of the day, if they're voting for you to be the treasurer, they're trusting you to keep up with their financial responsibilities of the org. And then this is just transitioning. So when you're transitioning out of your position, having a training 2 months prior. So I know in other cases, some people might do some shadowing maybe like a month before, or sometimes even once people are in the position. But being a treasurer is so very important. So going ahead 2 months before and meeting with the new treasurer to have like a training or orientation and running through the documents of the organization, as well as having them shadowing you before you end, is very important to do. I also highly recommend, if you have a handbook or any resources that helped you, provide that to the incoming treasurer as well. And then all of the records, financial records, should be up to date, and signatory authorities on any account should be changed over. So that's like changing who's on the bank account, or if y'all are using other methods, making sure that's updated. And then an audit. I highly recommend that another officer who's not the treasurer should conduct and sign off on an audit of the org's financial statements. And it's basically them reviewing all of your documents and the current status of the account and signing off that, yes, all of this is correct. And it just shows that you did your due diligence, and if anything is to occur in the future, that you're not held responsible. So I would highly recommend doing an audit, and it just also prepares the org that they're in a good position moving forward. When it comes to transitioning. So it's a smooth process. And this is very, very important that, of course, you transition for all your officer positions, but especially for your treasurer position, please take note of these. And this is just taxes and kind of what we were talking about with the bank information again. So what a tax ID is your EIN, and it's an identifying number given to an organization by the IRS for a group. So student organizations are not automatically tax exempt or provided with a W-9. Student activities will do a fundraising letter request form if students are ever requesting that. For if that's like a separate thing you're needing to do, we do have a fundraising letter request form on OrgSync that you can fill out. And then there are two types of federal income and state sales tax as well. And then the tax exempt status, so 501c3 is most sought out for, and sponsors are able to write off a donation as an income tax deduction. So if you're ever getting like free or donated money, that can be an incentive that you can share with sponsors if you are a 501c3. And to become a 501c3 you have to file that through the IRS. And student activities cannot give financial advice, but we highly recommend, when you're making decisions of getting the EIN or filling in paperwork, that you reach out to a tax expert or reach out to student legal services here on at the UNT campus. So now I'm going to transition to fundraising, and this is raising money for your organization to, again, complete those big goals your organization has. So I just wanted to hear out from a couple of people, what type of fundraisers has your organization done in the past?
So for our organization, the Filipino Student Association, we've done a lot of profit shares with local businesses in the area.
Okay, super good, Katrina. Profit shares are very popular, and we have a lot of them in the Denton area. Okay, Katie said fundraisers at local businesses. Yes, it's very popular. And a lot of times, especially like ones that are in proximity to the organization, to the university, we know students are going to be there. It's an even extra incentive if they're supporting some of their favorite student orgs. And what are some ideas you have for your student organization in the future that you've thought about, that you think would be a good way to raise money for your organization? Dave said bake sales. We're going to talk about bake sales very soon. It's a good idea, but we do have some policies here regarding bake sales. Surprised no one on here know. I think it's the Double Good, the popcorn sales, the virtual fundraisers. I know that's a very popular one as well. Well, we'll get back to that soon. But thank y'all for sharing. So I'm going to go over 5 keys to successful fundraising, and I'm always going to say answer the why. choose the right fundraiser, effective organization, teamwork is essential, and action and follow through. So we're going to go over keys 1 and 2 first, and this is answering the why and choosing the right fundraiser. So when you're deciding on what type of fundraiser you're going to do or the why behind it, excuse me, thank you. Make sure it lines up with the mission of your organization and the motivation that behind the event, and the purpose also lines up with the mission and vision statement that your organization has. So, and this is another thing whenever you're planning any event on for your organization, it should always tie back to the mission of your organization in some type of way. And also choosing the right fundraiser. So is this going to be an internal fundraiser where you're going to be raising the funds from members of the organization, or is it going to be an external profit where we're going to be asking our campus community, or even having like the global community that is out there as well? And then who's assisting? Will we be partnering with another corporation or a local business, like was mentioned with the profit shares, or will this just be with a local food bank, or who's going to be assisting and who are going to be the key players? And how much time is being dedicated, and making sure that the members of your organization do have time to dedicate that time for that. And is it going to be a connected to event? So some fundraisers, like I was saying, like the Double Good popcorn one that's kind of been trending, it's usually not connected to an event, but it can be. Or is this a fundraising event going to be a part of a program that you have in? So, for example, I've seen some organizations where instead of charging money to get into their event, they charge canned goods. So there was a non-monetary fundraiser where they were able to donate back, but that's another idea of when it's connected to the event. Or if y'all would be selling a type of service, or if you are going to be selling interest to your event. So let's say, I know, for example, let's say it's a step show for our Greek members, then they usually are charging entrance but offering a performance. Or if you're going to have a dance recital, or if you're going to be having a dance lesson, just seeing those are some examples of when it's connected to an event or a program. Key number 3 is organization. So create a fundraising goal. So whenever you're doing a fundraising event, you need to have a target goal. And I say dream big, think big. Because if your goal is $1,000 or $2,000, and you're strongly like motivating your team as a treasurer along the way, they see the goal and know that it's attainable, and if you're tracking it along the way, you can have motivation, and sometimes you'll even exceed those goals. So make sure that you're not afraid to, one, set a goal and set a high goal. And then establish a proper cost to profit ratio. So if you're going to be, the cost of the event is gonna, let's say it's attached to an event, the cost to do the event is a total of $300. And you want to make sure that put yourself in a situation where you can make $300 plus some to get profit. So sometimes when I've seen it, where student orgs are planning an event that's supposed to be meant to fundraising, that sometimes they might go a little too far in the details and the spending, that you're not breaking even, or sometimes you're under or like going over, not breaking even, or not making enough profit. And setting a budget. So that's kind of like what we talked about earlier when we look at the spreadsheet. When you're setting a budget for your org overall, also set budgets for your fundraising events too, if you are going to have expenses associated with it. And donations and corporate sponsors. So if you're going to have some items donated, or you're going to have corporate sponsors, making sure that you're keeping up with the communication and deadlines with them as well, that you can properly get those sponsorships or those donations. You got to be organized, especially when you're working with third parties. And then again, making sure you have a timeline and you're, again, very organized. So have a timeline of, we're going to start the fundraiser on September 18th, and our goal is to have all money donations collected by October 18th. And if there are any mid-time deadlines of we need to send a reminder message or email, that you have that set out there too. So the last 2 keys, 4 and 5, is teamwork is essential, and action and follow through. So essential elements of optimal teamwork is making sure you're being a team player, making sure you're communicating, making sure that everyone's carrying their load and doing their part to reach the end goal of the fundraiser, and making sure you have volunteer support and committees. So having and giving everyone an assignment. Fundraisers should not just be on the exec board, it should be on the entire general body of your organization to fulfill that. And making sure you're defining responsibilities and clear expectations. So sometimes you can't be upset if a member of your organization didn't do what you thought they would do on their own, making sure you're giving clear communications of, okay, Madison, I'm going to need you on next Thursday to drop off the spreadsheets and the sign-in sheets at the fundraiser, or I'm going to need you to collect funds on this day, or, making sure that you're being clear with the date and the time as well of when you need things done. And also so people know what their part is. Like if I'm going to say Gabe, I'm going to need you to just keep up with the income that we have for the fundraiser throughout. You have to let Gabe know that if you want Gabe to do that as well. And then again, like I said, communication. Another one is advertising. So if you have a social media chair, make sure that you're connecting with them to make sure that your fundraiser is getting boosted and getting put out there so that it has optimal coverage as well. And then outreaching. So if you're doing a fundraiser and you know that it'd be an interested cause to donors or corporate sponsors, like we talked about, don't be afraid to make you some outreach emails. Also go out into the community, because sometimes you can even go to local den businesses and they're always willing to support. And I would say even at our Frisco campus as well, like they're always willing to support. And you never know, you might be able to get a donation for them too. So it seems untraditional to, it seems traditional to just do an email or do a phone call, but sometimes going in person is the best method as well. So just make sure that you do what can fit your time and your commitment. And don't leave thing. Like make sure that throughout that you are motivated, your team's motivated, and you're engaged in the fundraiser, and remembering back to those earlier steps of your why and your purpose behind it as well. And at the end, celebrate your wins and celebrate the work that you have done at the end, and celebrate all of your members and make sure that you're thanking them. And this is encouraging them and engaging your morale of your organization to go forward the next time. And then do an evaluation with your team. Don't, I would say if your event ends on the 18th, don't be afraid to go and ask questions with members of your organization and say, okay, what went well, what went bad, where can we improve, and things of that nature, so you can take that feedback for the next time that y'all are doing an event like this. And even if you don't want to do like at a meeting, I would say make an evaluation form that you can send out regarding the fundraiser. So here are some of the fundraising activities that are not allowed for student organizations. And I hate to say it, Gabe, but one of them is bake sales. So due to the conflict with Verde Catering and the health code in place, you cannot sponsor any type of bake sales on campus. So we are not allowed to do those, as well as raffles. So the term raffles means the awarding of one or more prizes by a chance at a single occasion among a single pool or group of persons who have paid or promised a thing of value for a ticket that represents a chance to win. And that just comes from the Charitable Raffle Enabling Act 1990. Another thing that you can do instead of raffles is giveaways, but with giveaways, again, they're not allowed to pay money in order to have a chance to win. So with a chance to win, or example of when people like do spin wheels, but they're not paying anything, they're just putting students' names in a pot and they have a chance to win. But if people are buying tickets in order to you get a prize, that is considered a raffle, and that is not allowed. And the other thing is selling food. The sale of food is not permitted at the university, and that also goes back to health code and conflict with our catering services on campus. So I'm going to wrap up today with just talking about some of the fundraising opportunities that we have from SGA and our Graduate Student Council. So SGA is our Student Government Association here, as well as our Graduate Student Council. So SGA has Eagles Nest, which is assists with registered student orgs with on-campus events, services, or projects. And the process is listed below. You'll submit a form. You'll also have to go to an SGA resource meeting, and you'll submit an event application first on OrgSync. correct myself. And then you'll go to an SGA resource meeting, which you even can go to prior to even doing the event application. You'll complete the Eagles Nest application, which is on OrgSync, and it has to be done at least 4 weeks before the planned event date. And then you'll do a presentation to the Eagle Nest committee. And then you can also find the full funding guidelines on the SGA webpage, or you can email sga@unt.edu if you need more information about SGA Eagle Nest. The next one I wanted to go over is RAP Travel Grant. So RAP assists undergrads with virtual conferences and event attendance. So if there's a conference that your organization is interested in traveling to or participating in virtually, you can fill out this form. And some of that, again, you have to attend the SGA resource meeting, complete the application on OrgSync, no more than 3 months before and no later than 2 weeks before travel. So just make sure you're aware of those dates. You have to present to the route committee, and then you have to submit itemized receipts as well. And there also are reimbursement programs with loans available through the Student Money Management Center as well, related to RAP Travel Grant. And correction, RAP Travel Grant is currently open, so I apologize for that typo, as well as Eagle Nest is currently open as well. So the next thing I have is the Graduate Student Council's Event and Travel Fund. So this is for graduate students. And it has to be an event that is directly going to benefit graduate students and or graduate programs. So orgs that are a mix of grad and undergrad will designate how many grad students will attend. And again, travel funding is not currently allowed for student orgs, but the GSC is allocating funding for virtual conferences for graduate students. And if you have more questions about that, you can reach out to the email below. The next thing is student activities funding opportunities. So these are funding opportunities from our department directly. Student Organization Foundation and Funding Award, or you might see it as SOFA. SOFA provides funds in support of registered student organizations' foundational activity. So foundational activity is an event that has been happening for at least like 3 years. That same event or event similar to it, that is what a foundational event. And the org has also had to be registered for a certain amount of time as well to be eligible for this fund. And how that goes, you have the officer must complete SOFA training. You'll submit a funding application on OrgSync, and it has to be approved by the org's president and advisor by the deadline. And these are also, by the way, offered per semester. So right now, applications for SOFA are open for the spring right now. So if you are wanting to potentially have funding in the spring, you might want to fill out that SOFA application ASAP. I know the deadline is coming up in October. And then after you have done the funding application, the SOFAC committee, which is Student Organization Foundational Funding Award Committee, reviews the application and notifies the student org of ineligible requests as well. And then the student organization presents budget requests to the student organization, the SOFAC committee, online or in person. The committee deliberates and notifies the student org of the funding decision. And then the student organization will work alongside with student activity staff to make the purchase for the allocated programs. And if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to studentactivities@unt.edu. And then the last one we have is SOAR funding. So if for some reason your organization this is for funding for student org items and activities that are not eligible by any other fund. So any of the other prior mentioned funds, if you're not available for those, then you are able to apply for SOAR funding. But with SOAR funding, you must be currently registered with student activities for 24-25 academic year. You must not have received any funding in the fiscal year 25 student service fee budget. So sometimes if you're a department or if you have received funding, you might not be eligible for this. And you have to complete the form on OrgSync. And of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out to studentactivities@unt.edu. The deadline for SOFA, give me 1 second, I'll pull it up for you. I want to give you the accurate date, Katie. The deadline is Friday, October 4th at 11:59 p.m. So again, what Katie asked for is the deadline for SOFA. You're welcome, Katie. Is October 4th at 11:59 p.m. is the deadline. And then presentations will be the week of October 14th. And then allocation notifications will come out on October 21st. And I'll also show y'all how to get to the website and get to the SOFA application page as well. And then the last thing I wanted to go over were some other resources. So of course, like I mentioned, the Student Money Management Center is a great resource for your organizations as well. I'm gonna check the chat. Thank you. And then also DACU. DACU is downstairs in the Union on the Denton campus, and your bank provider in general is a great resource for your organization too. And then, of course, going to the irs.gov website, and then the Student Activities Money Matters resource on our section on our website. So going back to the student organization page from earlier, I wanted to show y'all this resource again. The student org page in general is a great resource for all of our student orgs. So if you go over to operations and going down to Money Matters, this is a great section for all of our treasurers and officers and organizations. So all of the funding that we just went over to get the most up-to-date and accurate information that you might need, you can go over to their website. So we have Eagle Nest, Route, Travel Grant, Student Organization, Foundational Funding, and SOAR funding. And I know since we have a question about SOFA, SOFA does have a full website and the training video, the training quiz, and you can learn about the committees and as well as how to apply and also the timeline and guidelines associated. So that is a great resource as well. So I'm going to drop the link for our operations side of the student work page in the chat. And that's it for me. I want us to be able to stay connected. So if you have any questions about this presentation, of course, you can always reach out to Student Activities at unt.edu. But if you have any questions for me directly, you can email me at hallie.johnson@unt.edu. And again, I am one of the coordinators of student organizations. And thank y'all for attending this SOLD workshop today. Our next SOLD workshop, I'm very excited about, will be October 9th from 4:30 to 5:30 in Wooten Hall 215. And that is going to be our Finders and Keepers workshop, and it's on recruiting and retaining memberships and within your organization. And again, thank you very much for coming. If there are any questions regarding this presentation, please reach out to Student Activities, or again, you can reach out to me directly. And again, make sure before you sign off today that you complete the Talents Up program and sign in for your student work to earn points. Have a good evening, you all.